Hello Internet! So here we are with the second scenario of my randomly generated campaign. Just like last time, I've gone through my procedure and randomly generated another engagement. This one is once again a meeting engagement. It's clear weather, 6 turns long. There are 3 key objectives. The primary objective is this heavy construction building here. There's another secondary objective here and the little building on this empty map here. I've generated the Russian opposing forces as per my spreadsheet system I showed in the previous video, and I've got my own forces here laid out ready to attack. In this one, once again, the Russians are the defenders, but as this is a meeting where we're both racing for this point, I have created the solo deck with the offensive Silver Star cards. So they will be a bit more aggressive in attacking it. So as per the campaign sheet, my personal leader is still only a 505, so he's not very useful. But we do go into this starting with 6 experience points. So hopefully I'll be able to rack up a little bit of experience and build on his skills for the next one. Got quite a slim force attacking them, but I do have reinforcements coming in on turn 5. But being a 6-turn game, that's not going to give them much chance to do anything. Get in and cause some damage as soon as possible. As for the Russian forces, they're spread out all over the place. We've got a couple of tanks, plenty of Tachankas. They've got 2 heroes on the board already, a bunch of leaders, a commissar. So I think they're going to have a good chance of rallying their troops, which could be a bit worrying. Now, I do still have a sniper to come on somewhere, but both sides have an airstrike with their respective planes, and both sides have OBA. I've got 2 OBA fire missions, and the Russians have 1. So there could be a lot of bloodshed. As per my normal Rackham reports, I'm not going to show you every single move and every single die roll. I'm just going to have a little breakdown at the end of each turn, show you where things are and what's going on. Now, the one thing I've not done yet is seen who's got initiative. So, red for Russians, grey for Germans. And it starts with a Russian initiative. On with turn 1. So at the end of turn 1, there's been a little bit of activity. One of the Russian T-70s moved up, and that was met by the Panzer IIIJ, which did manage to convert it into a wreck almost straight away. And the Russian KV-2C did charge all the way up here. There was a little pot shot from the Panzer IIIJ over here. No real effect because it's on the front armours and these things are tough, so he's going to have to come round really to stop him. But this unit did run out with a satchel charge because he wasn't buttoned up at the time. Threw a satchel charge in, managed to shake that vehicle. So at least there's some play there. But this wrecked vehicle here is the only real damage so far. Over here we've got some shaken motorcycle units gone into on the secondary victory locations. But aside from that, it's just a bit of positioning. So this turn actually took quite a while, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to fit the whole game in tonight. I might have to do a couple of turns here, then a couple of turns in another evening. My personal leader and a small stack have now got to the upper level of the primary building. Whether or not they can keep that location is the real story. So, on to turn 2. So, turn 2 was explosive, and I've left a few counters out here just to show you what happened. So, my personal leader has been on the top floor of this primary victory location, and he called in a off-board artillery strike onto this group here, and did loads of damage. Got wounded heroes, broken half squad, everything's shaken, a lot of damage. However, the opponent also threw in a much lighter OBA attack there, which did very little, didn't shake anyone in there because it's in the hardened building, and that was a really good protection for them. Now, another thing that did happen is my Ju-87 managed to come in from the eastern edge. So I managed to take a flight path over where the KV-1C was and wreck it. So now the Russians have no more tanks on the board, and I've still got my 2 SS tanks going around. There are a couple of anti-tank weapons around, so they're not completely immune, but they're in a good position to stay alive and lay down firepower. Aside from that, again, it's just more getting into position. There's been a lot of breaking, but it's the Russians that are really suffering. And at the end of that turn, you can see that the casualties, the Soviets have got a lot. We've lost a single half squad of casualty reduction. Now there still is a Russian airstrike to come out, and I've still got to bring my sniper out. I know roughly where I want to put him on the map, and no one's come close yet. So I'm going to wrap up for tonight, pack this away. I'm going to get it back out tomorrow and go from turn 3 onwards. So it's the end of turn 3. A little bit of excitement this turn round. The Russians' plane did come in, drew a nice line along here, managed to shake this machine gun, which was slowly moving into position, taking them out of it for a couple of turns. They've moved into a building to repair. They also dropped their bombs on the heavy building primary location here with a couple of leaders in this big stack here. Didn't even touch it. The heavy construction building managed to fend it off, so that's lucky they survived that. So other than that, we've got more troops moving in. As all of my troops were around this area had all fired or moved, the AEO started crossing the road, so my sniper popped up and managed to wound a hero, shake a unit there. But they are very close now. They're just across the road, so it's time to really lay down some fire there to keep this primary victory location safe. The tanks haven't done much. Both of them have really tried to pick off the Tachankas. I've managed to shake one of them, but not a lot there. But the secondary victory conditions B and C, they're both quite secure. So although there's not been a huge amount of bloodshed, I'm in a good place going into turn 4. So as you can see, the Russian casualties are building up, and they've still done very little to me. I've got a few shaken units out there, but hardly any actual blood yet. Let's see what turn 4 brings. Turn 4 was disastrous for the Russians. They tried to rush across here into melee, and they got ripped apart by the ground floor forces in this centre of the main victory hex. Absolutely obliterated, so now there's an extra couple of support weapons sat in that building with my troops, which I don't even have spare MMCs to pick up. The other remainder that went across, we did have a couple try and cross here, so some more support weapons dropped here with this shaken unit. The sniper managed to take out one of them, and this guy's managed to take out some others, but everything that's going on here has just been an absolute slaughterhouse. From the flamethrower here to the disastrous melee, the Germans have loaded up and are standing their ground. And they brought the MG back, which was laying even more firepower down, keeping everything nice and toasty. And on the western side of the battlefront, you've had the 2 SS Panzers move in and destroy the tankers completely. You've got a stack of motorcycle units sat in this building, and this little few shaken Russians here. There's no way they're going to take that. And these tanks, where they're buttoned up and there's no real anti-tank weaponry, they can just roll around with impunity, destroying anything easily. And there's just nothing, as long as they keep enough distance, they don't get a close assault, there's nothing that can possibly go wrong. And given how most of the Russian infantry have been tied up in the main area, they've just had a complete run of it. And to make things worse for the Russians, I've got some more reinforcements coming in this turn. Another tank, another motorcycle unit with a leader. And as you can see from the casualty bin, it is overflowing on the Russian side, and the Germans have nothing. I mean, even at this point, it's going to be a complete decisive German victory. Let's move into turn 5 and see what happens. So at the end of turn 5, any defence from the Russians now is basically a formality. They've got a couple of units and a couple of leaders in this stack here, but even if they spread out, the defending forces around there are just doing too good a job of keeping that road. That's just an uncrossable road. There's also a little 76mm gun here. I mean, it doesn't have the movement to get anywhere else or reposition, and it's got this tank hunting it down, so it's in trouble. Aside from that, they've got a single broken half squad over here. There weren't huge casualties in the last turn for the Russians because there wasn't really many people left, but the Germans have just solidified their position so strongly. So yeah, like I said, turn 6 is basically a formality. This is a complete German victory, but let's see if we can wipe the Russians completely off the face of this battlefield. On to the final turn. And at the end of turn 6, they actually started to put up a little bit of a fight. Far too little, far too late. So they had the ATG gun. When the SS tanks tried to sneak up on it, forced the SS crew to abandon it. There were a few shaken units here, but there were also some that stood strong here and did manage to pack off all of this German firepower that was concentrated on it. They did lose the last little shaken squad there, but well, half squad I think it was. Nothing overall, but what this was without a doubt a decisive German victory. Not a total victory, there was that tiny little outhand, but they completely kept it away. I did enjoy this scenario, and I did learn a few things from it. For a start, buttoned up vehicles, if you can keep them away from troops and keep them away from any kind of ordnance firepower, they are just unstoppable. But I think I learned a little bit more about my random generation system. So because this is a meeting engagement, this guy was really useless. He come on, it's got his 1 firepower, the AEO deck's telling him to shoot whenever he can. Because he's got to set up on this edge, he's never going to do it. So I think I'm going to have to rethink my random generation table to take out weapon teams from a meeting engagement. When you're the defensive force in an assault engagement, it makes a lot of sense because you can put them, they can be positioned in much more defensive places. Whereas on this starting line, randomly generated the way I do, it just doesn't work at all. That said, I also think that for my next scenario, to get a better idea of how my random generation is working in this random campaign, my next scenario, next game 3, is going to be one of the provided scenarios from the pack. I am going to randomly generate which one, so just roll the dice, see which one I pick out. But I will have a little look at that. But overall in this game, my leader did much better than in the previous. He got right in the thick of it. He was directing fire. And he managed to get a few points up. So let's go and see how he's changed. So going into the scenario, he was quite measly. He just had 5 morale, 5 movement, 0 leadership. But he did bring in 6 experience points from the previous battle. In this one, he did manage to cause a lot of damage check failures for the opponent. So there's 7 points there. Plus 1 point for being on the winning side. No other major things and no losses. So with his grand total of 14, he's got over the 10 points needed for an upgrade. So I'll bring out the chart here and let's see what upgrade we're going to have. 4. So plus 1 to the leadership. So now, going into the next scenario, he's a 5-1-5. Still pretty weak on morale and movement, but at least he's going to have a much better effect on the crew around him. And we're going to go into scenario 3, where we pick one of the scenarios out of the companion book to play. So this scenario was a lot of fun. I completely thrashed the solo assistant. I have to say it got diced. Whenever I personally was rolling good rolls, it was on the firepower. If I was rolling bad rolls, it just meant that I had no effect. For the opponent, when they were rolling good rolls, it was for surviving morale checks. But when they were rolling bad rolls, it was just disastrous. So, we both got a fair shake of the dice, but their poor rolls just sucked. When their OBA and their airstrike came in, just useless. My 2 OBAs and my airstrike, significantly more destructive on their side. And that was like it throughout the whole game, and it was just the dice. And for them, I was using the card dice, which I was shuffling with all the reloads, and they were getting plenty of chances to change their random generation. But I think that next time, I'm not only going to choose a scenario from the companion book, I'm also going to use dice for them instead of using the card dice, just to see if it makes a difference. It's purely subjective. That's how it felt to me. When you choose these cards, I don't feel like you get a perfectly random selection where you've pick out which posture cards you include, whether you include the offensive silver star or the gold star posture. I'm not sure if they've completely smoothed out the rolls there, because it just didn't feel like they were rolling very well. But again, that could be perfectly subjective. I'll have to play another game and find out. So yeah, onto scenario 3 in this campaign. There'll be one from the book. Let me know if you're enjoying these videos. Let me know if there's anything you particularly want to see me play or see me tackle when it comes to Heroes of the Bitter Harvest or Lock and Load Tactical. And until next time, happy gaming!